On the Level Talk Show.
You're tuned to On the Level with Ankhobia. This is Muta Baruka.
Get ready for some of the hottest talk on radio. The On a Level Talk Show addresses issues that matter to you.
Ankhobia with On a Level.
Okay. The perception of Marcus Messiah Garvey. When most people think of Marcus Garvey, they think racist because he dealt with race first. They think all he wanted to do was take black people back to Africa, and Africa got nothing, so he wasn't progressive. I've seen a rise of YouTube videos trying to slate him, especially by those who were for the movement African descendants of slaves. I think they call themselves and such persons. I've just seen a steady rise to slate him, and I don't see a counteraction necessarily coming from the Garveyite movement, unless it's the brothers on the street. Is it Sarah Seton? I think it's Sarah Seton and some of them brothers when they're on the street with their red, black, and green. Most people know when you see Marcus Garvey, red, black, and green, you're going to see those colors as well. And again, some people have negative connotations towards the flag of the UNIA, his organization, red, black, and green. How has that come about? Are people misinterpreting what Garvey is saying? Because I've studied Garvey, and when I hear some people talk about Garvey, I don't know what books of Garvey's they're reading. I don't know what speeches of Garvey they're reading. I don't know where they're getting their information from. A lot of people are associating persons who are African-centered, black conscious-centered as racist, hateful, bitter, angry, issue-orientated, and can't produce nothing other than just chat. What's going on?
I think it's been a bit different for me because, as I said, I've been quite fortunate in the sense that I've been able to absorb Marcus Garvey independently and without any influences from outside. Because as I say, I come off the street, I went into myself, so I become seclusive. So majority of the studying that I done of Marcus Garvey, it's on my own. I got no influence.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
And
you were fortunate.
And I was very fortunate, and this is what happened. As I said to you, I didn't start to speak about Marcus Garvey straight away. It took me a few years, like say about 4 or 5 years, before I actually went out there and spoke about Marcus Garvey and started to influence people on Marcus Garvey. What I found after the first introduction into the Black consciousness movement, that a lot of things that I was going to movements, I was going to these meetings because I've learned about Garvey now. Now I can go to anybody's meeting. I know about black culture and so forth. When I was going to meetings, I was noticing that a lot of the things that they were saying was contradictory to what I'd learned about Marcus Garvey. So I became...
Give us some examples, things like what?
The very racism itself. I never got that from Marcus Garvey. You understand? I got race first, yes, but I didn't get racism through. I didn't get without that influence, I didn't get no. So I thought... What is it that they're saying that makes you think that they're racist? That makes you use the word to say, these people are dealing with racism. No, when I say racism, I don't mean racism in the technical sense of racism in regards to they got the power to do anything about it. But in regards to people speak of and mention things about Garvey, and when they, like for instance, we will say separatism, you understand? Self-reliance. Yeah. So that when they bring that across, they bring it across as if it's at the expense of anybody else.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
So this is where I see stretching away from what Garvey dealt with. Understand? It's like used as like to conflict against somebody else, or well, I don't get that from Garvey. What I got from Garvey personally is that Garvey is speaking to us. You understand? And when he makes reference of people of other nationalities, he makes those references to say, well, this is what they've done. You understand? Yeah, it's affecting us, but the reason why it's affecting us is because we are not doing what we're supposed to do.
Yes,
so I always got that.
Okay.
Everything that you say, I always got that. So I never saw the need when I went to movements to keep on talking about what other people are doing and so forth and whatever, and then using Marcus Garvey, you understand, as a means to rally people into this self-reliance, brilliant. Black first, brilliant. You understand? But then to add on to it that it's in opposition or it's in an antagonism and, against anybody is what I consider to be outside of what Garvey taught. And that's what I meant by racism.
Yes.
It's not, it's a race thing. The only race that Garvey spoke about was our race.
Yes,
Black race. I don't really get from
because he spoke about the love of the brotherhood of mankind.
Okay,
He was very,
yes.
and I remember when I was studying Garvey, I came into Garvey somewhat slightly different from you in that I'd heard about him through the reggae songs, just heard the name, didn't take much notice of it. And then my father had a conversation with me one day about Marcus Garvey. I took note. It wasn't until I moved to Birmingham, for those of you who can hear the accent, this is not a Birmingham accent. We're based in Birmingham now, but this is not where I'm from originally. And then there was no such thing in Wales as Marcus Garvey books in that sense until my friend's dad in the 90s began to introduce black books into the library. God bless his soul. He did a wonderful job. I don't recall any books on Marcus Garvey until I come to Birmingham. But I got to Garvey through filters. So it was through what people were saying. It wasn't until I got to sit and read Garvey myself. This book is like a must-have. Message to the People, The Course of African Philosophy. And in particular, folks, this book. People, you always hear them talk about the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, volume 1 and 2, volume 3. Yeah, this is the one. Speeches, volume 1 and 2. What some of you may not know is that his wife edited that book and she took out some of the harshness because at the time he was facing possible prison sentence. So she softened some of what he said because she didn't want his critics to try and use that in the press against him and to sort of influence the judge and so forth. So she softened it a bit. But when volume 3 came out in 1974, you got Garvey unfiltered, unadulterated, raw. So for me, that was the book. And in there, when Garvey says, the first thing you must do as a human being is ask yourself the question, who am I? So that's before you do anything, you must ask yourself that question and then begin a journey of self-knowledge. Well, I never got none of that from going to any of the Garvey movements. It was just a sort of a rhetoric. And as I became around the movements, and as I began to read about Garvey, I just began to think there's something different. Volume 3 was the one that really finally made my mind up that they're dealing with some aspect of Garvey, but it's been somewhat distorted. I'm not saying everybody distorted it, but for the most part, I felt it was being misrepresented to our people here in the UK, in America, and in the Caribbean too, and in Africa. And that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to do this project, give people the opportunity to hear speeches they've never heard. 1 or 2 they may have heard, but the majority they wouldn't have heard, like 29 of them they wouldn't have heard. And let them decide, just like you had that. For 4 years, you cut yourself off and you took Garvey into yourself and awoken into yourself. And I wanted to give people the opportunity because I never had that. And what it did was distort my perception. One of the first things I think the elders should have taught me about being a Garveyite was that you're supposed to be an entrepreneur.
100%.
It's standard. You're supposed to be an entrepreneur. Not this, I'm not in the system. You got your degree and everything. I'm not working in the system. Babylon this, Babylon that, fireburn the system. I don't want any part of the system. And this rebellious sort of attitude that doesn't produce anything. So you got all these people who can read books and who can quote, quote, quote. But when you see how everyone's living, you're like, what's going on? This is not what Garvey was dealing with, especially when you see what he did in the 20s with the people, in the 30s with the people around him. So you're like, hold on, we're regressing. We're not actually progressing with this ideology. Is it that we've got the ideology wrong? What is it? And I think some of the blame of that falls on the shoulders of Black organizations. Not all of them. I'm going to big up the Al-Qaeda and Revivalist movement. I love them debates. But for a lot of the organizations, I just thought to myself, they got this wrong. And Garvey, just before you come back in, Imani, the thing that really got me with Garvey, I was reading, I think it was a Robert Hill book. Was it Robert Hill? It could have been Robert Hill or it could have been a book of quotes. And Garvey says, you can sum up my mission in 3 words. if ever you get stuck and you want to know what was Garvey about, 3 words. He says, simple, I came to teach self-love. Teach self-love. Wow, the word love never even came into any of my learnings and the journey through the sort of Garveyite Pan-Africanist movement. That word love didn't come into it at all. So when he said that, I says, let me now go back and read his books again, but looking at it through the lens of love, this understand of his concept of love. And yeah.
But this is, I mean, that's exactly why I said I was quite fortunate, because I only read the words of Marcus Garvey. And I'm telling you, from what I've read, I've never heard Garvey say anything against anybody. Never, in any of his speeches, in any of the books that I've read. He speaks about, yes, what people have done, which is facts, the truth. These are truth. Go back in history, these things happened. So we're not talking about when you're telling the truth about an occasion or whatever. But for me, from the beginning and throughout my journey, Garvey was speaking to me directly. What you have to do. Not what they're doing, even the speech it tells you. Not what they're doing, what you're doing. So I absorbed Garvey as if he's speaking to me, and I was just looking at what I was doing and what I was responsible to do, which was obviously everything to do with my life, everything to do with my family, everything to do with my community, everything to do with anything around me. I had a responsibility for it. And that's what I got from Garvey. But let me just mention something about the speech. I don't think you knew this when you gave me that speech to read. I was kind of fortunate again because I came across that speech in about 1996. When I first heard that speech, I cried when I first
was that through the Cutting Edge show?
I actually got it from a lady in London. She was Roxana, her name was. She was a very, very popular retailer of audio material.
Yes, yeah, bless her.
I got that particular tape from her in 1996, and I began to copy that tape and sell that tape.
Okay.
And I copied, and in them days there's no CDs. Obviously there's no computer, so there's no digital files. So that tape, I made a cover for it and everything. That time nobody doesn't know about this.
It's just the one speech on the one tape?
Speech.
On the 90-minute tape?
Yeah, on the 90 minutes tape. I think I did have the 3.5-minute one on there as well at the end. And I think I did put on a Burning Spear song, No One Remember Marcus Garvey. So I tried to make it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I sold hundreds of that tape. I went throughout the whole country, all Notting Hill, Bristol Carnival, Leicester Carnival.
Isn't that a massive contrast from selling crack across the country to selling Garvey across the country?
That's what I did.
That is proper.
That's what I did.
Hope you don't mind me saying that. I'm just thinking of
not a problem
the contrast. That journey. It's just remarkable.
So what happened was,
that's amazing.
Because I had to copy that tape, I had to listen it every time. Because in them days, you understand? Even the fast Dolby thing is only
if you turned it low, was it going to be called? Yeah.
So even the fast Dolby wasn't around when I started this thing, or I didn't have the right machinery. So I had to listen it every time. So I'm telling you that I have recorded and I have sold hundreds of those tapes. So I have listened to that speech hundreds of times.
Wow.
So that speech became plastered on my heart, on my mind, on my
soul, your body, your foot bottom, everything.
So I know what that speech is. So when you asked me to read off or look at that, of all the 31 speeches,
this is the one I asked you.
That's the one you asked me to get, and I know that you didn't know my history.
Spirit works.
With that. So that's how I come to know that speech, and that's how I learned that speech, and that's how that speech means so much to me. But I also want to say the book that you just lift up that book again, please.
Which one? This one?
Message to the People. The Message to the People. That is my Bible. I follow that letter to letter. And the Philosophers and Opinion is Marcus Garvey's Philosophers and Opinions. I had that for a while. That was the first book that I come across after the Black Moses that told me his Philosophers and Opinions. But a lot of the things in the Black Moses, you just the Philosophers and Opinions just added to that.
Yes.
That book there, I got that about 1997. By Tony Martin.
God bless his soul, Baba Tony.
Yeah, that is a course that Marcus Garvey taught before he passed away, The Message to the People. And he deals with lessons. I think there's 21 lessons in there.
Yes.
On topics and subjects about how we must live, how we must practice certain things, how we must be engaged in certain things, and how we must carry ourselves. That book is what Garvey advised if we were to go forward as a people, we should follow those kind of strategies and those
yeah.
principles.
Actually, there was someone who actually, they say there was 42. I think there was originally 42.
And he couldn't.
He says he's seen the others. He's seen the others, but the elder wouldn't release it to allow. That's what he said. He says the elder just would not release it. I don't know if it's gone to the grave of him or his grandchildren have got it, but they wouldn't release it. And I understand why they wouldn't release it, because they wasn't supposed to release this one, to be honest with you. It was meant to be like in-house. But he said he has seen the others.
So let me tell you something. When I received that book, my whole perception of Marcus Garvey changed.
Again? Okay.
Because even though I'm reading for myself, I've still got influences coming from outside. So I've still got this idea about separating and all the rest of it in isolation. I've still got all of that. You understand? And I've still got all of that. But when I read that book, it changed my perception completely.
Nobody can tell you nothing about Garvey again.
Yeah. Nobody. It's very hard. Garvey, with that book, and in that book, Garvey showed us how to become good, productive, positive citizens in any country that we're in. Yeah, in any country that we're in. And how to use the mindset of what Garvey's giving us to help to build our communities in whatever city we're in, whatever country
So
we're
why are our people, why is it now that they just see Garvey as just, like the most, normally when I see an image of Garvey, the quote is normally, if a tree without roots, a people without their history is like a tree without roots, right? And that's sort of what people band around all the time. And you go to the odd reggae festival now and again, and the artist or the DJ will play Burning Spear, Marcus Garvey, or 1 and 2 Garvey tunes. If you're lucky, people generally do not want to engage. This is the first national hero of Jamaica. Yeah, the first national hero of Jamaica. This man had a worldwide, global, international impact, and black people are like, they're not. I don't know if it's that they're not interested, or that it hasn't been presented to them properly, but they generally, Martin Luther King, they run towards Martin Luther King. Malcolm X and Garvey, even when you hear about brothers in prison being reformed, they'll talk about Malcolm X's book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley. No one seems to mention Marcus Garvey. Why? And then from then, we're going to go into the speech.
Well, the reason why, I mean, we've got to ask the question, how was Marcus Garvey's movement brought down? Who brought it down? What was the purpose of bringing down Marcus Garvey movement? And what did they do to ensure that Marcus Garvey's movement did not resurface?
Okay, so briefly,
must take that into account.
Share with our audience what happened to bring down the great movement.
Well, straight away, what we must understand is that there's a man called J. Edgar Hoover. We all know J. Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI. He was the one who was focusing on Garvey's case at the time. He started his career with Marcus Garvey. And he started about 1919 when he starts. When Marcus Garvey started the Black Star Liner. But and I just want to make this point first. And he never really was able to prosecute or to do anything to Garvey until 1923, 1922. And he wasn't able to send Garvey to jail until obviously 1925. And what did they send him to jail for? They sent him to jail for mail fraud, which the evidence has shown now that Marcus Garvey never did it. He never knew nothing about it. It was orchestrated by the FBI themselves. They sent in infiltrators at the time, and they was ones who made up this Trump charge against Marcus Garvey. The key point to understand is that you're telling me that from 1919, the FBI have got agents in Marcus Garvey's movement, right? And they can't find nothing nothing creditable to say that he's breaking the law. He's doing things that they could prosecute him. That's to show you how tight Marcus Garvey run his organization. That is what I get from that. You understand that they had to make up charges. Fabricate charges to bring down this man. And they was in his organization for 4 years. With the agents, I don't think, Marcus Garvey, the UNIA or the FBI, the first black agents in any intelligence service in America was brought in to bring down Marcus Garvey.
Because I've heard that many
Yeah,
times.
you can read it in history.
Yeah.
So the question we would ask them, when they've come into the UNIA, brought down Marcus Garvey, did they make them redundant? What has happened? This is why I always ask, what has happened to the FBI, the CIA, who infiltrated Marcus Garvey? When they brought down Marcus Garvey's movement, what did they do after that?
The On the Level talk show.
But we know W.E. Du Bois, the NAACP, had a massive impact to play on bringing down Garvey. The fact that he was from the Caribbean, a Jamaican man as well, which is a shame because Du Bois had Haitian roots.
Yeah.
His whole name, I mean, his family were from Haiti. So that was a shame. But they used him because he was, I don't know, what we call redskin.
Yeah.
I think in America they say high yellow or something, but we say redskin over here. So they seem to have, well, not they seem to have, they had an antagonistic relationship, Marcus Messiah Garvey and W.E. Du Bois and some others within the NAACP. They had a different agenda. Their agenda was towards integration. In fact, their agenda is the one that's gave us Barack Obama.
Yeah,
Because that was always their that's their goal.
To achieve their goal.
You didn't see anything though with the Black Power movement. It sort of went into like a corner.
Well,
I don't mean like you didn't see anything like people weren't active, but what I mean was the activity was compared to where it was at. It was like,
yeah. Well, this is where we're gonna get. This way it's gonna get controversial now, because this is what I'm saying. Don't forget, I'm looking from the outside. I'm not in no black movement or nothing like that. I'm looking from the outside. I've learned about Garvey from the outside. When I start looking in, these are the things that trouble me. When you say to me Pan-African, when you say that word to me Pan-African, the first person I think of is W.E.B. Du Bois.
because he was the one.
He was the forerunner of the Pan-African
called him the
movement in
Godfather.
1900. I don't know that for a fact.
And Garvey himself, as much as people associate Garvey with Pan-Africanism, and we know Mrs. Garvey did go to that first meeting as well in Manchester, but still Garvey.
That's the fifth meeting.
Oh, the fifth one.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
the fifth.
She did go.
But Garvey knew of Pan-Africanism. The term was around when he was around. He never used it.
He never.
You
associated
can't
with it.
find it anywhere in his writings where he uses that word at all.
No.
He talks of African nationalism, black nationhood, African nationhood. You don't get, even in African fundamentalism, when you read it, you don't get Pan-Africanism.
It doesn't
Yet the
feature.
man who brought down Marcus Garvey, which is what you're saying, the people
the
who brought
head.
him down, where did they go? He now goes and creates the Pan-Africanist movement. And I'm like, and I heard Professor James Small say recently, well, you know, W.E. Du Bois, he apologized loads of times for what he did. I've never read anything with him apologizing about Garvey. Never.
I did read something when he took on the role at, because don't forget he went to Ghana, innit? I have heard something when he says that he kind of like, what's the word he used? Like, he misunderstood or...
He misunderstood what the
Garvey was
intentions.
doing. Yeah, because remember, in the end, he gives up his citizenship, so he knows in the end that Garvey was right. In the end, it's too late. You understand? But when he was alive, and the reason why the Pan-Africanism movement takes on board Marcus Garvey, or Marcus Garvey's influence gets in there, is because on the 5th Pan-African Conference movement in Manchester, and that's where you have Nkrumah,
all them, the big guys. Yeah.
You have the African leaders at the time. Well, there wasn't leaders at the time, and they was all Garveyites.
Yes.
And obviously the Pan-African Congress had to call these leading African figures, and when they came and when they was coming, they was Garveyites. So this is why it was imperative.
But was there any challenge to Du Bois to say like, yo, let's take him to a room and just deal with him hardcore, because he's the one who's brought down the biggest movement in the black world? Or is it just a case of just allow him to go through? Which is what I find that we tend to do.
No, that's what happened. I mean, this is what happened, didn't it? And this is what I mean, I didn't want to call names as such, but
it is what it
reality.
is. It is
the
what it
reality
is.
of it is, Marcus Garvey even says in his speeches that it is W.E.B. Du Bois who went to the government. There's a campaign in America called Garvey Must Go.
Yes.
It's a campaign being run in the crisis paper,
which was
which is head by
Du Bois.
Du Bois is the editor.
Yeah.
So it's just become strange when I'm reading about Garvey, then I go into the Black consciousness movement, and I see everybody's Pan-Africanism. Everybody's Pan-Africanist.
Yeah.
Everybody's following the Pan-African movement. So then I have to go back and find out how this happened. How does this happen? And as I say, it's because of the fifth Pan-African Congress movement. But the question must be, and as I've said already, if the FBI and the CIA, well, the CIA didn't exist at the time, they did later on, if they infiltrated Marcus Garvey's movement to bring down that movement, and they successfully did it, what happened to those agents after? What was the long-term
next
strategy?
assignment, yeah.
What's the next assignment? And what I've seen is that right now today, as we have today, and we cannot, because when we say Pan-Africanism, and when we say Pan-Africanist, we cannot say it's the whole Pan-Africanism movement, because there's a lot of people. I mean, I would say I'm a Pan-Africanist as well, because what does it mean? I'm a Pan-Africanist. But as for the movement, and that's what we're talking about here, the movement to make changes and to develop our community and to bring us to the level that Marcus Garvey had brought us to, when we ask the question, why hasn't a movement achieved that? We must ask, how does that movement come about? Does this movement come from Marcus Garvey? If it doesn't come from Marcus Garvey, who does it come from? We must ask these questions. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not writing off Pan-Africanism or anything like that, but I've got to ask the question.
I mean, there were other founders of Pan-Africanism who was the elder from Trinidad? George Padmore, Sylvester.
Yeah, powerful Sylvester.
I forget his. Okay.
Yeah, there's some serious. There's serious people in there as well. It's not just Du Bois. There's other people in there.
So there is an argument to say that there were other people who had the idea of Pan-Africanism first. Du Bois just came and sort of sidelighted them and went to the forefront.
Oh yeah, no, Pan-Africanism exists a long time before the 1900s. There's no doubt about that. But it's the movement, it's the organization, and just what we're talking about, that he was able to set up and chair.
Okay.
So that's the
yes. I know we can go deeper and deeper into that, because I know some people will be upset by some of those, even this type of reasoning, but it has to be said, and these are questions we have to ask. We have to be honest with the history we have, and we have to ask. I mean, I don't understand how you say someone created a movement of 11 million people across the world, and then when that person goes, it's like, 11 million. You can imagine a white person spearheading an organization of 11 million people, the sort of massive impact it would have globally. Like, you would see institutions set up, you would see various things set up across the world. Now, I don't know if I'm being fair or not, but it just seems strange that a movement that is said to have 11 million people, and yet, when you look now where we are in the 21st century, it's like a few Garveyites, few Pan-Africanists in the world. And you think, where are the remnants of the... I know some people say, well, look, Kwame Nkrumah became president of Ghana. But then I just think... Well, you understand what I'm trying to say?
I was going to make that point as well, is that... That's what I was saying. I don't want to mislead anybody, because, as I'm saying, people like Nkrumah, they brought forward the Pan-African movement. They come under the banner of Pan-African movement, and a lot of achievements that we have had has come through the Pan-African movement. So there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it wasn't successful. I know the movement was very successful. 11 million is just a number, a big number. 11 million people.
I mean, from that point of view, I mean, for me personally, right, when you look at Garvey's achievements, you say 11 million, it's not simply 11 million. What it is people who are speaking multiple languages, French, Spanish, German. There's black people all over the world, in Africa. Thousands of different people, different ethnicities, and different religions. We got Christians, we got Muslims, we got everything.
Yes,
we got African spiritualists. You understand? You will find it very hard to find in the history of human beings an individual who was able to galvanize such a widespread and diversity of people in his lifetime. You'll find it very, very hard to find an individual like that. When we speak,
I can hear the Christians saying, but Jesus did.
No. When Jesus, look, I'll give you an example. When Jesus was here, Jesus did not leave from out of Israel and Nazareth.
Jesus did. Muhammad did.
No, Muhammad never left outside of Mecca. He went to Medina. He never left outside of Mecca. It's after Muhammad passes away that his followers then bring his message worldwide. Likewise, Jesus, likewise, most prophets in the world, when they're here, they do what they're doing. Their followers, their family, their people, they then take that knowledge and bring it wide. Marcus Garvey, in his lifetime, in his time, is one of the, I don't know anybody else who was able to galvanize so many people of different ethnicities, different religions, different languages, different political persuasions into one organization. Now that to me spells unity at a level that the world does not yet understand its fullness of. It's not just 11 people.
I guess sometimes, I guess I'm from that generation where sometimes you look at things, to you, success is what's tangible. It's not always what's intangible. And what you're saying is that sometimes we have to balance it. There's physical success, there's intangible success as well.
But you can't,
yeah.
This is what I'm saying. And people sometimes, I mean, even a lot of the things that we look at when we deal with Marcus Garvey, as I say, in regards to the knowledge, Marcus Garvey says specifically, the value of knowledge is to use it. So if we got that knowledge, what do we do with it?
But this is where I think, and we are going to get to the speech, folks. We are going to get to the speech. If you just tune in into the channel, it's the On a Level Talk Show. It's our first visual radio show. We are here at the famous Express Truth Studio, where they host the wonderful Express Truth Show from. Be sure to head over to their YouTube channel as well, Express Truth, and their website, expresstruth.com. Is that right? The expresstruthshow.com. Yeah, they're doing some absolutely great works. So we're here using their studio today to do our show with myself and Brada Imani. I think the struggle in any organization is, see, you can be someone who comes with a great message. Necessarily speaking to people won't change them. You can move their spirit, you can inspire them. But they got to go through a process. You went through a process yourself, you locked yourself off, you went within yourself, spoke to your inner man, so to speak, and then came out and shared what you had to share with the world. Created some wonderful, in fact, the only Marcus Garvey exhibition, photographic exhibition I've seen like that. You need to tour that across the world. It's amazing, folks. Imani's put together from what year? From a long time ago.
I originally done that about 1998.
Yeah,
that's the second exhibition.
Yeah, Marcus Messiah Garvey photographic exhibition. It's amazing with text, and he's also done a book as well to accompany the exhibition. But the point I'm making is that people have to go through a process of deprogramming and training. So I could say, look, we're the great people, we're great and this and that. But by saying it to you, doesn't necessarily make you great.
No.
I got to take you through a process that helps you to get to the greatness that I feel within myself, that helps you to see the vision I have within myself. That's where I feel some of the organizations struggle. Sometimes when I see people who are in the conscious movement, well, even if they're not actually, even within the church, or even black Muslims, they get angry with our people. Black people ain't doing this. We ain't moving here. We ain't doing that. And I'm saying, but you have to create institutions to help deprogram people. What we've been through is the greatest mind slam in the world, for want of a better term. It's serious what we've been. We've been ripped apart, dismembered, like all said, absolutely cut into a million trillion pieces. And we've been conditioned on such a deep level. Even when you go to Africa and you think you've got Africans, because they're on the continent, the Africans, they're not. They're Europeanized Africans in their own country. So the institutions have to be created. Just singing a song or telling somebody something isn't going to change them. That's why you have schools. That's why you have religion, because you go through a process of indoctrination. So you have colleges, university. You go through a process of indoctrination. You want the brother saying his son's training to be a boxer. He's got to go to an institution to learn the rules, the tools, the techniques of boxing. And it's the same if you want people to fall in love with themselves. You've got to create the tools on the table. you've got to create those institutions to enable them to go through a process to, as you would say, take them back towards being the African, the black man or woman or child that you think they should be in order to be successful, to be empowered in this world.
The question that we would ask is, and where would we, as African black people, get such a direction from? Where is there a
Oh, you switched the interview around now.
No, I'm just saying that. No, I'm just posing the question. The reason why we haven't got it we haven't got that because most of the cultures, most of the communities have certain structures in place. As you said,
they don't joke. They don't joke.
We've gone through a traumatic kind of experience that's kind of like taking the rug from underneath our legs.
And that brings me back to the point of the 11 million people.
So that's what I was getting back to.
That's what you're going back to. Because we look to Garvey as this Messiah complex, this Messiah person, and he was a Messiah, as far as I'm concerned. He was a prophet. And some people, they can only deal with the prophet. So when the prophet's gone, they sort of fall to the way, oh, this ain't going to work. Or they don't think, okay, like John Henry Clark said, you bury the man and continue with the plan. Yeah. And you keep it moving and you keep going forward. You know, some people, because they're just looking to the Messiah, they're looking to the prophet, they're not necessarily saying, who am I? What am I here for? What is my role in this thing? What am I going to do now to contribute to this great plan, this great vision? They think the vision has ended with the person dying.
Well, I mean, this can bring us into the speech. If you listen to Marcus Garvey's speech, Marcus Garvey makes some claims when he's speaking to us. Claims like he's coming back. He makes that claim.
Yes.
He's coming back to help us in the future. He also speaks a lot about, he kind of understood that what he's probably doing is probably going to have to be for a later generation. But he's totally confident that what he's doing now is going to be something that's going to serve people at a later date. So that's us. You understand? So what he has to do, and this is why I think the message for the people, the message to the people book is there for. Because you have to have, as you say, institution. But how do you create institutions? To create institutions, you have to create people and develop people to have the capacity, the mindset and the skills to run these institutions. And that is where I think that the organizations, them are not providing those vehicles to create leaders. Where Marcus Garvey, his whole thing is to create leaders. It tells you in the beginning. So this is why I'm saying, so when you, like for instance, when you're studying Marcus Garvey independently, he's speaking to you. So he makes you a leader. So unless you become a leader and you get up and you do the things and take control and take charge of what you're doing, how are you going to be part of an institution?
Okay.
This is the issue that we've got. Each person has to take that responsibility and they have to become a leader in their own right.
Yes.
Each one of us. And then I may be a leader in admin, but that's what I do. And that's what I'm going to contribute to our movement. So I master my admin. Another person will master whatever they've got to master. But we have to learn practical skills. And we have to be committed. We have to be devoted. You understand?
I've seen a lot of organizations turn people away, though. I've seen people come to organizations. I mean, loads of people who could have created these institutions, and because of what they experience, they back out that door. They're like, yo, I'm gone, man.
Well, this organization, that's another thing that we must look at. Marcus Garvey, as you know, Marcus Garvey had over 1,000 branches, over 50 odd countries. That takes phenomenal organization, phenomenal. He distributed how many millions, tens of millions of his newspaper. That takes phenomenal organization, phenomenal. So this is where we may lose, because we hear, oh, Marcus Garvey did this, Marcus Garvey did that. So we all say, oh, Marcus Garvey had the Black Star Liner, but we don't think, how did he do that? And when we're talking about Marcus Garvey, we must understand that Marcus Garvey is one amongst a generation of people. He inspired hundreds, thousands, even millions of people to get up and put their shoulder to the wheel. You understand? He could not do that on his own. So he had to inspire individuals at that time for them to get up and to have confidence in themselves and do something about their situation. So that's what he taught at that time. So when you listen to Garvey now, independently, without whatever, that's what he's telling you. You need to get up. You understand? You need to do something about it. Stop worrying about what that person's saying and what that person's doing. You understand? You're a man, you're a woman. You need to get up and do what you can do to help your community.
And he knew his impact because there's a speech he did, which I wish I'd included within, but there was so many speeches. It was like, you know, but reading it again, I was like, oh man, this speech really speaks to now. They all do, but this speech was amazing. It's called The Negro Race is Dying Out, in which he recounts, for those of you who asked, what have the UNA done over the past 6 years, over the past so many years, let me just remind you. And he goes through all of the changes across the world that they brought about. It's a unique speech. Okay, how long have we been speaking for already? 1 hour 15. Hey, when myself and Brother Imani gets chatting, it's something else. I was like, we're going to do like a 10-minute intro.
Ankhobia, empowering the community with the On a Level talk show.